I'm Michael LeBeau.
And I'm Tanya Kane-Perry.
With NewsWrap, a summary of some of the news in or affecting LGBTQ communities around the world for the week ending February 1st, 2020. In India, a petition filed with the Kerala High Court claims that not allowing a gay couple to marry is unconstitutional. Plaintiffs Sonu M.S. and Nikesh Pushkaran held a wedding ceremony at the Sri Krishna Temple in Guruvayur. However, religious authorities refused to issue a marriage certificate to the couple. The Supreme Court decriminalized gay sex 2 months later. The lawsuit charges that denying lesbian and gay couples access to civil marriage violates constitutional guarantees of equality, individual dignity, and personal autonomy. The couple also argues that the heterosexual-only Special Marriage Act of 1954 is discriminatory on its face. Their petition references the U.S. Supreme Court's 2015 marriage equality ruling. The lawsuit faces numerous hurdles on its way up India's judicial ladder.
India's Supreme Court has accepted a challenge to the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. The filing by trans activist Swati Bidhan Baruha cites constitutional guarantees of equality and privacy. Baruha is charging that the recently enacted legislation actually violates the rights of transgender people and reinforces prejudices against them. The lawsuit is no surprise. Trans activists complained when the measure was first introduced last year and when it was ultimately signed into law in December. Sections of the Act require the certification of a trans person's gender identity by a district magistrate. The filing points out that cisgender people don't have to do anything to confirm their gender identity. It also claims that anti-bias protections in the Act are toothless because there are no provisions to punish violators. In a landmark 2014 decision, the Indian Supreme Court ruled that discrimination against transgender people violates 3 articles of India's Constitution. This week's filing says that the so-called Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act is itself a violation of those articles.
Police officials banned the annual Pride Parade in the Indian city of Mumbai this week ahead of its planned February 1st step-off. Queer Azadi Mumbai has organized the event there since 2008. The group posted a letter from the police saying that officials worried about anti-government protest over the Citizenship Amendment Act spilling over into Pride. India's streets have been filled with demonstrations since the act was also signed into law in December. It pointedly excludes Muslims fleeing religious persecution in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan from its expedited citizenship process for refugees. It specifically welcomes Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and Christians. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights calls it fundamentally discriminatory. LGBTQ activists have been among those protesting the legislation. Mumbai activist and drag artist Harish Iyer tweeted that, "We all are a mixture of identities. Queer is just one of them. We don't exist in the forefront or margins. We also exist in intersections." Activist Rituparna Bora told Al Jazeera that queer people are either disowned by their family or forced to leave homes. How would they acquire the documents that are necessary to prove their citizenship?
10 young men in Mauritania are under arrest after appearing in a social media video of what local reports call the country's first gay wedding ceremony. Consensual acts against nature can be punished with death by stoning in the Sharia-governed North African nation. However, no executions for gay sex have been reported in the past decade. Police Commissioner Mohammed Oud Najib said that the ceremony was held during a mid-January birthday celebration of a homosexual in the capital Nouakchott. An unnamed source told Agence France-Presse that the prosecutor's office sent the young homosexual delinquents to prison to await judgment for acts contrary to morality, committing acts forbidden by Allah, and circulating a ceremony of debauchery. According to the French news agency, Mauritania's mostly Muslim population may tolerate lesbians and gay men in some circumstances, but sexual minorities are often publicly mocked and tend to keep a low profile.
TotalCroatianNews.com reported this week that the Social Welfare Center in Zagreb has defied a court order by refusing to accept a gay couple's foster care application. As we've previously reported, the Croatian Administrative Court issued a binding judgment in December in the couple's favor after a 2-year legal battle. Life partners Ivo Sagoda and Mladen Kozik began the effort to expand their family in 2017. After passing all the psychological evaluations and screening tests, they were told that the Foster Care Act doesn't expressly list life partners as possible foster parents. Croatia recognizes same-gender civil partners but doesn't allow them to marry. The couple said that they were shocked by the rejection because it refused to acknowledge the court's direct order. They said after the December ruling that they had already started preparing their home for children. Welfare Center officials called the court order an opinion that contradicts existing law. Sagoda and Kozik say they will file another legal challenge to the denial of their application. Kozik said, "This is another small obstacle that Ivo and I will have to overcome together."
Republican lawmakers in a dozen U.S. states have introduced bills to sharply curtail the rights of transgender young people and their parents, and in some cases, to criminalize medical professionals who care for them. South Dakota leads the pack. The state House passed a bill this week to throw a doctor in prison for prescribing puberty blockers or hormone treatment for young people under the age of 16 who've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria or for participating in parental-approved gender confirmation surgery. Critics warn that the measure denies parents the power to decide what's best for their children. Dr. Alexis Chavez is the medical director of the queer youth suicide prevention group, the Trevor Project. She said that such proposals not only contradict reality and majority medical opinion in the United States, they would also put young lives in jeopardy. The bill's lead sponsor is South Dakota Republican State Representative Fred Deutsch. Deutsch had to apologize recently for his remarks comparing doctors who treat transgender kids to Nazis. Under his bill, doctors could spend up to a year in prison and be fined up to $2,000 for each offense. Deutsch claims that his bill would protect vulnerable children. It passed in the House by a vote of 46 to 23 and is expected to be approved by the Republican-controlled state Senate. Republican Governor Kristi Noem has yet to weigh in on the measure.
2 more trans youth-related bills were filed this week in the South Dakota State Senate. One would require a public school counselor, psychologist, or social worker to notify parents if a student expresses feelings of gender dysphoria. The other gives parents the right to refuse consent for any health care service to a minor if it would induce, confirm, or promote their child's transgender identity. Measures targeting transgender youth are also in the works in Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas. According to The Advocate, 9 Republicans filed a bill this week in the Iowa House that would become the first time an entire category is removed from a state's anti-discrimination protections. The bill would delete all references to gender identity from the Iowa Civil Rights Act that were added in 2007. Some activists charge that the anti-trans efforts are being orchestrated across the country by right-wing groups like the Family Research Council, the Eagle Forum, and the Alliance Defending Freedom.
Finally, a Missouri state lawmaker is targeting librarians who host Drag Queen Story Hour. Republican Ben Baker's bill would withdraw state funding from any public library that allows the display of what it calls age-inappropriate material. Translated from the legalese, Baker explains that Drag Queen Story Hour is something that I take objection to, and I think a lot of parents do. The proposal has yet to be formally considered by any legislative committee. Defenders of Drag Queen Story Hour quickly pointed out that no one is forced to attend such events. According to a website that tracks them, the first Drag Queen Story Hour was held in San Francisco in 2015. The colorful idea has since spread worldwide. The site says it's meant to give kids glamorous, positive, and unabashedly queer role models. Anyone with knowledge of queer culture knows that if you're going to piss off anyone in the community, it had better not be drag queens. The Springfield News Leader reported this week that plans are in the works for drag queens from across Missouri to converge on the state capitol in Jefferson City on March 7th to protest the measure. What a colorful sight that promises to be.
That's NewsWrap, Global Queer News with Attitude for the week ending February 1st, 2020. Follow the news in your area and around the world. An informed community is a strong community.
NewsWrap is written by Greg Gordon, edited by Lucia Chappelle, produced by Brian DeShazer, recorded at the studios of KPFK Los Angeles, and brought to you by you.
Help keep us in ears around the world at thiswayout.org, where you can also read the text to this newscast and much more.
And you can listen to NewsWrap each week by subscribing to our This Way Out Radio YouTube channel. For This Way Out, I'm Tanya Kane Perry.
And I'm Michael LeBeau.